Welcome to the GateDrop podcast. GateDrop.com, giving you the jump in motocross news.
Hello everyone and welcome to the 2022 Supercross preview on GateDrop.com. I'm Jonathan McCready, with me is Andy McKinstry. And Andy, Christmas is all done and dusted and now it's the main event for winter. Supercross season is upon us and it looks like it could be pretty exciting this year with plenty of team changes. Although Ken Roczen, of course, he's the guy changing nothing. But Cooper Webb, Eli Tomac on the Yamaha, Cooper Webb not with Alden Becker anymore, Jason Anderson on the Kawasaki, and a lot more things to talk about, but it's pretty exciting with just about a week to go here.
Absolutely. Obviously with the MXGP season ending quite late at the end of this year, it doesn't feel like we've lacked that much racing really, and of course we went to Power Supercross there and not even that long ago, so it's quite good that the MXGP season ended so late, because it means we aren't completely, obviously we still miss the racing every week, but it's not quite as long as an off season as usual. Yeah, all the stuff will be, the anticipation over in America now is next level for the Supercross Championship to start, and it just over a week's time, so it should be a good one now. And of course with the AMA, because it's been so long since they've raced Supercross with their outdoor season, coming into the first round, there's always quite a lot of questions, and of course they don't really have any off-season races either, so it's set up to be an intriguing first round, that's for sure.
Yeah, and for me, we probably should start with Cooper Webb, but I'm actually going to start with Eli Tomac because I think he's the biggest intrigue coming into this season as far as the top three of last year goes. New team, new bike, new everything for Eli Tomac. There's reports he wanted stuff changed at Kawasaki that Kawasaki weren't willing to go to. And it looks like Star Racing Yamaha, they have the credentials now and an excellent first year on the 450, running that factory team. Dylan Ferrandis, of course, he took the outdoor title. And all three riders were in the top 10 last year in 2021 Supercross. So Eli Tomac looks like he's made, for me, this decision on, I need to change something and I still want to win. So it looks like his motivation's there. How quickly can he adapt to this bike? How quickly can he adapt to doing more training in Florida? He's going to have a very competitive teammate with Dylan Ferrandis. We all know what Dylan's like. He doesn't really give in to anything once he's on a roll. So do you feel Tomac can contend for this title, and can he win enough races? Starts were a big problem last year, but that Star Yamaha is known for horsepower, known for getting good starts, and that alone might be a thing that helps Eli contend more often than he did last year at the front of the pack, because a lot of times he was coming through the field last season.
Yeah, well, firstly, it's nice just to see Yamaha get it sorted in America in the 450 class. Obviously, they've been renowned for always being the best team, or one of the best teams on the 250. But, you know, before Star took over the 450 bikes, there were, let's say, question marks there. Obviously, Cooper Webb left, and we all know what happened when he left. When he went to KTM, it was a complete game changer. Aaron Plessinger, up until last year, didn't have too much success, but it was nice to see them turn it around, and Star Yamaha have done a wonderful job there, turning the attentions to Eli Tomac. It's going to be very, very interesting to see Eli Tomac and Dylan Ferrandis under the same awning. You know, I'm sure they'll start off with good intentions. There'll be a good atmosphere there, but once if things get tense out on track, you know, things can get a little bit dirty, and it'll be interesting to see how the atmosphere and the dynamic changes underneath the awning there. Obviously, yes, Tomac on his day will win, and I'm sure he'll win plenty of races, but sometimes he throws in a random 7th or 8th, just out of nowhere, really, and that usually costs him. If he can cut out his bad days and just be a little bit more consistent, I'm sure he'll win plenty of races. And with regards to moving to Yamaha, this is probably his big last contract, so he'll be looking, and he knows this could be the last big ride he has, so he'll be looking to perform out on track and add his one AMA Supercross title. Will he be able to do it? It's going to be difficult, but like I say, if he can cut out the bad days, there's no reason why I can't, because on his day probably is the quickest there, but it'll be interesting to see how quickly he gets to grips with the Yamaha. But after seeing the job that Star Yamaha done last year, you would think he shouldn't have too many issues.
Yeah, and the other thing for that team will be the dynamic between Eli and Dylan. Both probably expected to really go for this title. How will their relationship change? You alluded to it earlier, and how will Star Racing Yamaha be able to manage that? both seem to be quite individual in terms of how they do their own training plans. So I'm not sure there'll be that much overlap. But of course, there is the Ricky Carmichael's farm that Star Racing have bought in Florida. That's their new base now. So there probably will be times that we'll be testing together more often than maybe previously. But as we all know, if they're both in contention for this title, they might not want to show each other their speed on training days, and things could get a little bit tense if somebody has to do a do or die move. Teammates, obviously, they won't want them knocking each other down, but they'll both want to be the main alpha on that team. So that could be another thing to watch for. But Eli Tomac, probably the biggest surprise, perhaps, of how he's going to do. Will he be better? Can he go a level quicker than he was last year, or at least in terms of consistency of starts and speed and performance compared to the Kawasaki? Can he adapt to this bike quick enough? We've seen Eli not always at his best at the start of the season, but if some of the other guys get hot and continue that form, he might have lose time, lose points, and he has to try and catch that up at the end of the year. So definitely one of the most intriguing aspects is Eli Tomac on this Yamaha, and how the relationship with A Star goes, and B Dylan Ferrandis, and how that's all managed. But let's go to the champ, Cooper Webb. Red Bull KTM, new bike he's going to be on. That, although everyone will say this, the bike feels great. Really like the bike, definitely an improvement on last year. Reportedly better in the whoops, which has always been, if Cooper Webb has a weakness, that's probably been it. But he has a new teammate, Aaron Plessinger, who he gets on well with, so that might bring some fun. He isn't with Alan Baker anymore. I think he wanted to do that to create more longevity in the sport. Burnout seemed to be an issue. So again, he might have more fun from that road. But walking away from Alan Baker, who has won so many titles, especially in the last decade or so, of 450 Supercross racers, do you think that will be a problem for him, or has Webb got enough fight and motivation? Do you think he's working with Michael Byrne now to overcome that no Alden Baker in his corner?
Yeah, I don't think he'll have any problems at all. He's the most ruthless rider there is there, in my opinion. I mean, he's won 2 AMA Supercross championships, and yes, I know he had Alden Baker in his corner for those, but he's just ruthless. You know, if it comes down to one lap and you've him or any other rider going for it, you're probably going to back Webb to make something happen and get the win done, and that's helped him win 2 titles so far, and he's probably exceeded a lot of everyone's expectations. You know, he had a few tough years moving up the 450 class, but moving to KTM has been a breath of fresh air for him and KTM, really, and it's helped save his career. And obviously, after a bad motocross season, in a way that maybe takes the pressure off a little bit, because people will probably tend to forget, you know, what he done last Supercross, and it's going to be exciting. Can't wait to see how he does. Webb kind of reminds me of Dungey, but he's probably not as nice on the track as Dungey. Dungey might have been a bit more consistent,
yeah,
but Webb is able to win more if it comes down to the last lap or 2 laps. He's able to get the job done more, and I think that's why he's been able to bring home these Supercross titles so far. But obviously it's not going to be easy for him to win, but the fact he's so consistent is a good starting point, and if he can position himself well to get a few wins and then be really consistent, it could be hard to stop yet again. But obviously there'll be other riders that'll be out there to take this title off him.
Yeah, and the thing regarding Alden is, for me, this could kind of go both ways. On one side, you have the Cooper Webb sort of chip on your shoulder. I'm going to prove everybody wrong. He thinks I can't win without Alden, and I don't need Alden to win. And that sort of mentality, that's fuel for him. That should motivate him, and he'll want to prove his new arrangement, new training, everything like that works, and will work with a bit of longevity and fun as well, and that he can still win. The other side is KTM were in a contract with Alden Baker to train those riders. Marvin Musquin has left Alden as well. So you wonder how much pressure to win in a way is coming from KTM, Roger Coster and Harrison, because they've kind of put their eggs in the Alden Baker basket, and Cooper Webb said, no, I want to do my own thing. And they've said, okay. And you kind of think in brackets, they're saying it better work or else. So I think he's going to have maybe a bit more pressure from KTM, just in terms of, you've made this decision, now you have to deliver this title, because anything less, we're going to look at your decision to leave Alden for that. So it'll be interesting to see what way Cooper interprets this in his mind. Will he see it as a fresh start, fun, and something new to try and prove people wrong again about? Or will, if it doesn't start off well, will the pressure of he's left Alden Baker and KTM maybe question that decision come back to haunt him? But as we saw last year, if Cooper gets a chink of light that something's going his way and he starts to get that momentum, he's very, very hard to stop. And as you mentioned, ruthless, I think that's the best word for Cooper. If it's a one-on-one battle coming down to the end, you wouldn't really put your money on anyone else. He's willing to do whatever it takes, and I think he's willing to do more than what most of his rivals are willing to do, and that's essentially what won him the title last year.
Yeah, exactly that. And I mean, Webb will be looking to do the exact same this year. Yeah, he's left Alden Baker. I don't know. I think there's maybe a bit too much chat around Alden Baker. I know he's worked with a lot of riders and they've won a lot of titles together, but I think if there's only one way to go if you want to stay in this sport a long time, and that's ultimately to leave him. Webb's not the first rider to leave him, and he certainly won't be the last. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
Let's move on to Ken Roczen, another guy that actually left Alden. He hasn't got the Supercross title yet. He's come close. In the Supercross preview show on NBC, you mentioned about his health again, and that contributed to some of those fades that we saw at the end of last year. And then looking back, he couldn't believe he was still in the title hunt so long. For me, that raises the question again of how healthy is he this year? I think on speed and talent and riding ability, Roczen might be the most talented of those three, Eli, Tomac, Cooper, Webb, and Ken himself, obviously, coming in. But again, we still have this health situation, and also that fight whenever it comes down to a last lap or 2-lap duel for the win with someone like Cooper Webb. Is Ken willing to ride aggressive to cut Webb off, to put Webb in a tough block, even if it risks Ken's own health, essentially, to do that? Does he want it as bad as Webb? Is he prepared to risk it as much as Webb? So you have that, and you have the health issues. Nothing else is really changing. On the plus side, Roczen's staying with the same bike. It was a new bike last year, so they're obviously going to have more data. He should be more comfortable on it track to track this year. That should be in his favour. He's a very fast teammate, which we'll come on to soon, and Chase Sexton. Sexton's probably wanting to become the main guy at Honda, so Roczen's a bit of pressure on him from that side. It's almost a make or break year for Ken Roczen, probably, with these young guys coming up. He still has the talent, he still has the speed. Will his health be good enough? For me is the biggest question, but also that aggressiveness when it really matters on a one-on-one battle at the end of the race.
Well, this is it. I think he missed a trick last year, to be honest. I think last year probably should have been Ken Roczen's year, but it looks like he's possibly missed the boat now. Like you say, I think this will probably be the last year of him really being a front runner in this championship, because there's the new generation's coming, and you know, he's going to have to deal with an aggressive Cooper Webb. But let's not forget Dylan Ferrandis either. I'm sure we'll mention him later, but he's kind of cut from the same cloth as Webb. You know, if he gets a chance in the last lap, he's going to do whatever it takes to win. Roczen doesn't, if he can figure out that aggressiveness that he needs to win motos, you know, there's no reason why he can't do it, because like you say, he's probably the most talented rider in that class, but there is a reason why he hasn't won a Supercross title yet, and I hope for his sake that he can get that final piece of the jigsaw together and make it happen in 2022, but it's not going to be easy.
No, and you mentioned the next generation coming up. We'll start with Chase Sexton, although we might deviate to Dylan Ferrandis here. Of those sort of guys, Adam Cianciarulo, Aaron Plessinger, maybe even throw Malcolm Stewart in there. For me, I think I'll actually go with Chase Sexton over Dylan Ferrandis, although that's probably slightly controversial given Ferrandis' performance outdoors. But I think the Chase is pretty precise. He had a lot of speed last year, great starts. I think if anyone's going to break into that big three in terms of a title battle and win races, I might go for Sexton just over Dylan Ferrandis, mostly because of the starts and the fact that sometimes Dylan can have a big mistake in him if you're looking at long-term in the championship. But those two would be my pick for, if you're not going to have a champion out of the big three, as it were, historically the last couple of years, it's going to be Sexton or possibly Dylan Ferrandis.
But let's not also forget Cianciarulo, who has moved up to the 450s, has had a lot of injuries.
Well, that's
I think if he stays fit, that's going to be the big question mark for him. If he can stay fit and last the season, he'll not be far away. But I'm going for Dylan Ferrandis personally. I know he's sort of the same as Cianciarulo. He has got a mistake in him, but let's not forget that he had that crash coming into the Supercross season last year, and that set him back before the start of the year, before the gate even dropped. So at least this year, Ferrandis is coming in healthy, and he's the sort of rider who should get better as the season continues. If Ferrandis is top 6 or top 7 the first round, I think that's fine, because I don't think it's going to take him long to figure out how to win. It's just whether, like a bit like Cianciarulo, if he can keep it on the track and avoid injury, I do agree Sexton's the most consistent, but I think Ferrandis' better days will be better than Chase's. It's just a matter of staying injury free, which is what it's ultimately going to come down to.
Yeah, I think Dylan needs that momentum rolling in his direction. The biggest query about him isn't his speed, really. It's more his starts. If he can get the starts and run with those guys consistently, I think then, yeah, he gets a podium. If he gets that first win early, then yeah, you might see that consistency because of the confidence, the better starts, and maybe a bit calmer riding the way he was able to ride outdoors. Cianciarulo, you mentioned him there. Yes, speed-wise, I think he's on a level with maybe anybody. But this is his coming in his third season now, and every year he's had an injury, and he's already had a bit of a crash coming into this Anaheim 1, which isn't really what you want whenever you're taking on everyone else and you have to be at 100% all the time to try and win. His mistakes are what sort of making me think he won't be maybe a multi-race winner, a relative championship contender. Could he win a race? Yes, I would almost expect him to do that this year. He probably has to, third year on a 450 factory contract. But we've seen the speed. We just haven't seen the consistency. To me, he rides quite emotional. He wants it really bad, but sometimes that ends up in the mistakes because it looks like he isn't as cold as he needs to be in his head in certain moments, and he'll go for it, or he'll just hang it out there maybe when he doesn't need to. So picking and choosing those moments might be key for him, and maybe issues with the bike, better setup or this and that. But I think Cianciarulo is going to have to, first of all, remain healthy all season and somehow bring that speed with him before you're really going to think of him as a potential title contender.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you basically highlighted everything I said, but I think he'll win. I think he'll win plenty of races if he does last the season. But it's just like you said, it's consistency, and if he can avoid crashes, and even if he does avoid crashes, they tend to be typically quite big. So he might have a few DNS beside his name, even if he does stay injury free. So that'll probably hurt him in the championship race. But I do feel if he can last the season, he'll probably win plenty of racing. But unlike Webb and Roczen, I don't think he'll have that consistency that you need to really win a title.
Yeah, I think so. I still think the top three could probably be your top three. But if anyone's going to get in there, I think it's probably going to be Chase Sexton or, as you said, Dylan Ferrandis. That would likely be your top five, unless Cianciarulo can find that consistency. Now, two other riders who could easily get amongst it, they're more in the veteran stage of their career. And again, it's hard to judge. I think early momentum is going to be key for these two. Jason Anderson moving to Kawasaki. He was quick last year without winning a race, really. Podium threats, but again, bad starts seemed to hinder him a lot last year, coming through the field. Can he get the starts? Is he motivated to really go for another title? What are your thoughts on Jason Anderson? Because I think he could be sneaky good this year.
It's a difficult one. I see him as maybe a podium guy on a good day, but usually 5th to 10th possibly. It's going to take a bit of use to seeing him in green, to be honest.
It is.
After it'll take a while to get used to that, but yeah, I mean, he exceeded everybody's expectations when he won this Supercross title, and no one really. I certainly didn't think he was ever going to do that in his career. So he's achieved pretty much everything he wanted to in this sport already. So for him, it's just about having fun, trying to be consistent. But obviously, he's big shoes to fill at Kawasaki, filling the void that Eli Tomac's left. So that's going to be quite interesting. But like I say, I think he'll be consistent. I think between 5th to 10th on a good day, probably get the odd podium. Will he win a race? Difficult to say. But like one very crucial thing in Supercross is if you get a hole shot, anything is possible. So if he can get out of the gate, who knows?
That brings us to Marvin Musco. When we were at Paris, he hole shot at every race. Now, he wasn't on the new bike, of course. He was on the old bike, but he looked extremely comfortable off the track. He was very relaxed. He'd obviously just won, so he was happy, but he did a lot of media. Everyone seemed to want an interview with him, and he was very obliging to whoever it was. So he seems to be in a good place that road, confident. It's obviously Supercross only. He's left Alton Becker. He's training with David Villeman, who we all saw what he's done with Dylan Ferrandis. So you have that French connection. It looks to me like Marvin's all in on Supercross, and he might just be a dark horse for this. Maybe not the championship, but certainly a top 5 result in the championship. And it wouldn't surprise me if he won some races if he gets the start. He looks really good.
Yeah, well, Musquin's coming to the end of his career. This is it. Last year, he doesn't have to, impress to get a good contract or anything like that. So he can just go to every race and enjoy it now, and that might help take the pressure off. So I do expect him to be up there this year. I think he can be a top 5 guy consistently. When it comes to talent, we always talk about how talented Ken Roczen is, but I feel like sometimes we forget just how talented Musquin is as well. So it'll be interesting to see, but certainly it sounds like he's on the gas at the practice tracks at the moment anyway. So it will be interesting to see if he can get a fast start to his championship, and who knows, it could be a domino effect. But a bit like Roczen, has he got that aggression on the last lap? If he's battling with one rider to go for it, that's maybe the area that lets him down a little bit as well.
Yeah, he seems to like to do everything nice and perfect, and with his technique, he's obviously that's what he really excels at. So as you say, if somebody like Webb, although I know they're teammates, but that doesn't really stop Cooper Webb all the time, comes into the side of it and bumps him, will Marvin can get rattled, or will he be able to fire back and return the favour? Sometimes we have seen him fight back, but other times it looks like he gets a bit ruffled, loses his rhythm for a lap or two, and then you lose that cap. But he is experienced now, so you would think that maybe won't happen as much, but we'll see. I think, again, a bit like Anderson, getting off to a good start in the championship will probably be key for their confidence on momentum. Now, 2 riders I want to talk about have made a switch. They were teammates last year, Star Racing Yamaha, Malcolm Stewart and Aaron Plessinger. 2 guys that seem to always have a smile on their face and like to enjoy themselves are now training with Alden Becker, with Plessinger going to Red Bull KTM and Malcolm Stewart on the Rockstar Husqvarna. How will that go? That, to me, that could elevate them to the next level, or they could get totally burned out and by round 10 they'll be absolutely miserable.
Yeah, well, with Malcolm Stewart, he's like a fine wine anyway. Every year, I feel like he gets better and better. So I would have been expecting him to be better this year regardless. And, he's landed on his feet there at Husqvarna. So it's go time for him. He's pretty much waited his whole career for a big opportunity like this in the 450 Supercross class. So he'll do everything that's required. And yeah, obviously with Baker behind him, he'll be putting everything into it. And because he's further on in his career now than maybe a younger rider is, he doesn't really need to worry about longevity quite as much because, he hasn't got 5 or 6 years left, probably. He's probably got a couple left. So I'm excited to see how Malcolm Stewart does actually. Plessinger, I feel like KTM is a very good move for Plessinger. And he's not really going to be the main man there. So he shouldn't be under too much pressure to perform, which could help him. But sometimes you don't really know what Aaron Plessinger turns up to the track. He can be unbelievable. He can finish 3rd or 4th, and then another week he's just not feeling it, and he's maybe 13th or 14th. So maybe that's the area where Alden Baker can help him, is get a bit more consistent with his results.
Yeah, and we saw actually both with Malcolm Stewart and Aaron Plessinger indoors last year. They definitely have the speed and the ability to contend for podium, maybe even a race win, especially Aaron Plessinger. Outdoors as well, Plessinger was very good. And I think maybe sometimes he thought about staying with Star Yamaha. He said it was quite a tough decision, but since he's got the KTM, he seems to be really enjoying it. Obviously, the new bike, he's with Cooper Webb, so he's seeing what it takes again to be a champion in the 450 division. He's already been a champion on the 250, so he has the experience in that way. He's now seeing what it is in 450 competition. He might help keep things relaxed over there as well. But I'm intrigued to see how Alden Baker's strict diet, we've seen in the preview show with Malcolm Stewart, he's definitely on that diet. He's very chiseled right now. It's the most I've ever seen him. So it's clear that 2 of them are doing the work. I'm very interested to see if they can go to the next level, because we've seen on their day that definitely have a lot of raw speed. And if Alden Baker can make those guys into elite level podium race winners, that's going to be some achievement for him. And again, it's going to look great for the KTM company, Red Bull, Rockstar Husqvarna as well. Everybody's going to benefit from that. I think it looks like they've chosen 2 riders with talent who they don't feel have quite reached their potential. And they're hoping with Alden Baker, he can get that last 5-10% out of them. And if he can, I think they're going to definitely elevate their level.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what it's all about. And that's the job Alden Baker has on his hands. But like I say, Malcolm Baker tends to get better with age anyway. So it might be a good time for him to work with Stewart in his career. And, over the last couple of years, he's had some really good results. And it's nice to see him get this factory ride. And same with Plessinger. I think the change might do him quite good. It was a good job Star Yamaha got the Yamaha sorted out last year, because Otherwise, his 450 career would have been pretty miserable. But at least he can go to KTM now with a good season behind him. So that's good for the confidence that he did have a good year last year.
Okay, let's talk about the Brits. Max Anstey on the Rocky Mountain ATV KTM, what I think is a great move for him. Team race with Joey Savacci. Savacci, not sure where actually to place him. He's a good rider. Again, starts for that level of rider is going to be important. But I think if Anstey can kind of keep pace with Savacci indoors and around that top 10, of course, he came in late last year, so he wasn't actually there for Anaheim 1. When he did come in, there was a couple of guys injured. So this is going to be his first kind of full-blown, hyped-up Anaheim 1 Supercross event in the 450 class. So far, everyone's healthy when we're recording this a week out. Qualifying, I think, is going to be job number one for Max, and also Dean Wilson on the Rockstar Husqvarna. But I think those guys can hover just outside the top 10 if they get away. Max, we know, he's a technical rider. He's had more time in Supercross. He's on a bike now that he's a previous experience with in Grand Prix. He's been good on that chassis. I think the team's good. He's got a good reference with Joey Savacci, so I think he's everything in place. That sort of hard 2 years he's had with Hep Suzuki kind of establishing himself in America has worked for him. All that effort he's put in, the pain with those injuries. He's got a good opportunity with a good team, and I think it could work out for him. Obviously, outdoors might be where you'll expect him to shine more, but I think Supercross, if he gets into it, gets his rhythm, gets some starts, he could get a few top tens there.
Just before I do touch on the Brits, we have forgot about somebody who has got a British connection. Bam
Justin Barcia. How could we forget about that British rider?
Well, a British wife and a British mechanic. So
he's British. He's
halfway
British.
there. Like.
He's British.
Exactly. Just to touch on him, I mean, I think in 2020 he had his best season yet, a 5th in the Supercross championship, and last year he went one better and finished 4th. And honestly, with this guy, he's really good. Like, I'm never really surprised to see him win. It's just the consistency. We've mentioned consistency about a few riders, but I think Barcia is maybe the most frustrating because I'm personally never surprised to see him win, but you're also never surprised to see him finish 6th or 7th either. So if he can sort the consistency out and get good starts, he'll be knocking on the door, and he's quite similar to guys like Webb and Ferrandes. If he's feeling good and there's one lap to go and there's one guy ahead of him, he'll do whatever it takes to get the job done and win the moto.
Does he win the opener to make it 4 in a row?
It wouldn't surprise me whatsoever.
If he does that, that'll be amazing. 4 wins at that opening round, which is probably the biggest round you could win because all eyes are on it. There's no other racing going on. Everybody's been starved of racing. If you're a manufacturer rider and you're going to win one Supercross a year or in your life, that's the one to win for me. So the pressure will definitely be on him. I'm not sure if he'll repeat it or not. You would think that statistically it's probably unlikely, but as you say, when Justin Barcia is feeling good and he always starts the season strong, you can't rule anything out, and he'll probably want to make it 4 in a row, so his elbows will be out and he'll be bam on his way around the track if he's up near the front for sure.
That's it. And, you talk about pressure, but he seems to thrive under that pressure of the first round. A lot of riders come into it. Everyone says it. You can't win the championship at the first round, but you can certainly lose it. So some riders maybe, just settle for 3rd or 4th or whatever, but Bam goes for it. And, that's why he's won 3 in a row. But like you say, it's hard to win it once, never mind 3 times in a row. To make it 4th would be very, very special. But also, like I say, you're just never surprised with Bam when he wins because he's a very, very good rider.
Well, I think that Gas team, Troy Lee Designs team, suits him as well. He's great for the brand, Gas brand, and their routes seem to be really great for him. He's the main guy there. He's obviously 250 teammates, but everything's for him. The weight is on his shoulders to perform and produce for that company in America. He's the big name they've signed for big money. And for me, last year he delivered. You mentioned a sort of lack of consistency, but he's relatively consistent if you aren't looking at a title contender type thing in a weird way. He gets his wins. He gets a lot of 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th positions. Now, if you want consistency to win a title, you need mostly podiums pretty much and top 5s, obviously. So yes, he needs to win more if he wants to be in that title contention. But as a rider who's there most weekends, generally a good starter. Every now and again, he'll be in the whole shot, or he'll be battling Webb or Tomac for brand exposure and for championship positions. To me, he's doing a good job because, as I say, he's the one with all the pressure to represent that brand in America.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look last year, we could call him the best of the rest. We had the main 3, and then Bam Bam was the next one in line. And like you say, he was, yeah, I know what you mean. Like he was consistently where he was position wise, and then he would get the odd win. I just mean in terms of going for a championship threat, he needs to win more, and that's his next challenge, really. Obviously, it's not going to be any easier because this year we've got the main three from last year: Webb, Tomac, and Roczen. Add in Ferrandis and Sexton, Cianciarulo. If they can all stay fit, it'll not happen because injuries are part of the sport. But obviously, for the first few rounds anyway, it's going to be very stacked at top 10, and you're going to need to start the season quick, I feel, to get the ball rolling.
Yeah, I think Barcia usually does that, and I think if he doesn't, that's where there could be problems. But I fully expect him to come out, especially in these California rounds, to just lay it all on the line as usual. Mentioned the Brits there. You also mentioned that the stacked field. We haven't even spoken about riders like Shane McElrath, who are very good 250 riders indoors. He's got another shot in the 450. He was injured last year most of the way, so we never really even saw his full potential. So for Anstey, especially Anstey, Dean's a bit more experienced indoors. He can do the job in around that top 10 when things go well for him. But obviously he's a year older. But for Max, this is kind of wise in America to race Anaheim 1, to feel that hype, to race in the Premier class, and he's going to get it done. He has a bit of experience last year, but obviously different bike, probably a better all-around team in terms of resources and support that he has. I mentioned Joey Savacci, a solid teammate for him to reference himself off. Where do you see Max going this year on the RM Rocky Mountain ATV KTM?
To be honest, I think if he does something similar to last year, as the base minimum, that's good in my opinion, because I never really thought he was going to do that great last year, and he did surprise me. And whilst he will have better equipment this year, it's going to be tough for him to do that much better, I feel. Obviously, there'll be injuries and things like that, and that can help. But just to qualify is tricky. And he went over there. Obviously, he did have some Supercross experience, but he went over there quite late in his career to do Supercross, and that's not easy after years of GP racing, which is completely different. I always look forward to Anstey in the outdoors in America to see what he can really do, and with the better bike, I feel like he can maybe be a top 5 guy outdoors this year. But in terms of Supercross, and which is the reason why he's there, I do feel like he can get occasionally in the top 10, which I think would be really good for Max, considering.
Yeah, I think even for Dean at these first few rounds, like these guys are on good teams, but it's so stacked, especially the start of the year. Just qualifying has to be a relief for them, because if one bad mistake in the heat, they're in an LCQ, and you don't know what other top factory guys or good mid-level team riders have maybe also made a mistake, and they're also in that LCQ. So there isn't a lot of time to recover from mistakes in that one. And even the heats are going to be pretty packed, especially at the start of the year. Max was very consistent and solid, I thought, last year. I was pretty impressed with him indoors. Outdoors, it actually took a while for him to get going, really. It was towards the end he started to find his groove. But Supercross, he came in pretty well. So that kind of raises my hopes for him a little bit this year. But then you have to temper that with the fact that it's going to be a pretty stacked class at the start of the year. And first of all, your job is to get into the main event and then see what you can do from there. Exactly.
And then we've got guys like 166-year-old Justin Brayton there.
Yeah, can never count him out.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and then Caroli did whenever he left him on the ground, but 236-year-olds bar to bar.
And then you've got Alex Martin. Respect to him. He could have easily stayed in the 250 class, being so small that he is, but he took the challenge and moved up. So I actually hope he does well. It's going to be very tricky for him because, I mean, when you see him in real life, he's even smaller than what he looks on TV. So it's going to be a challenge, but I hope for his sake he can succeed and have some decent results.
Wipes could be a problem for him on that 450. As you say, he's a very good rider, but stepping up with his size into that 450 shark-infested waters isn't going to be easy. And there's that many good riders. Just getting through to the main event for some of these guys is going to be a bit of a relief for them, which makes it exciting to watch, of course, because even those championship level guys or your Sextons or Ferrandises, you don't want to be making mistakes in these heat races either to give yourself a bad gate pick and have that stress of an LCQ, especially at the start of the year with so far everybody seems to be pretty healthy and firing on all cylinders, which makes it quite exciting because the margin for error is so small in Supercross. Obviously, injury is a negative connotation of that, but even just your start gate pick, these heat races, first couple of rounds of the year, everybody's full of confidence, I feel. there's less differential between all the riders because everybody's hyped themselves up all winter. This is my year. This is my year. My bike's brilliant. I feel great. They come off the gate full of enthusiasm. And for the first maybe 3 to 5 rounds of the year, they can carry that forward. So that's often the most intense and most exciting part of the year. And really what makes January so good, it's not the most exciting month of the year normally, but Supercross brings that excitement. And Anaheim 1's back, so everything looks to be in line that road. Finally, only the 250 class. We aren't sure who's riding where, really, but it's hard to look past Jett Lawrence, Justin Cooper, Colt Nichols, the kind of usual names probably. Hunter Lawrence will be interesting as well, but Jett's already the star of that 250 class, no matter what coast he's on. He came pretty close last year. He had some big crashes. He's going to expect to win, and I think the whole world's going to expect him to win a 250 Supercross title this year.
Absolutely. My money's on Jett. Yeah, exactly. My money is definitely on Jett. If he can just be mature and take a second the days where he needs to take a second, or even a third the days he needs to take a third, because I think he'll win plenty, and he's definitely got the speed and the talent to win a Supercross title. So I feel like this will be his year if he can just stay injury free, and it's going to be a very, very big year for Austin Faulkner, that's for sure. It's going to be interesting to see how that goes.
That's a good shout. Yeah, he has to do something this year. Yes, he's usually fast, but outdoors last year, for maybe the first time in his career, he didn't have blazing speed. He did get better, in fairness to him, throughout the season, but he needs a Supercross title, and you wonder if the clock's starting to tick on him, because riders like Jett Lawrence, Justin Cooper, Colt Nichols, and there's young rider DeFrancesco is coming through now as well. A couple of the star Yamaha youngsters, Red Bull KTM of guys coming through. So Faulkner's going to start having to deliver, or his career's not going to go the way he envisioned it.
Exactly. Well, I wasn't even talking about the title. I was just talking about trying to get top 3 results, to be honest, after the year he had last year, because he needs it. It's going to be very tough for him to win the title, especially if he's racing against Jett. But obviously, we don't know that yet. But he maybe be looking to avoid that one and race the other coast. But yeah, it'll be interesting. Hopefully, for his sake, he can just get good results and ride with a bit of confidence. And the Austin Faulkner we know, because last year it was far from it.
And a few Brits as well making the trip out to sunny California. Dylan Walsh, well, Brit stroke Kiwi, Dylan Walsh. Joe Clayton, he knows his way around an arena cross track, so I think he's deserved that opportunity. He's been very good in the UK arena cross for a number of years. And of course, Dylan Woodcock, who impressed so much last year until that pretty gnarly crash, he's back for more as well. So that gives the British fans and even the European fans something extra to look for, and not forgetting German Brian Sue, who for me could open a lot of eyes on the East Coast. Yeah,
it'll be nice to see the Brits. They've all sort of done it the same year randomly. Yeah. Obviously, before this year it was only really Dylan, but this year Dylan Woodcock. This year Dylan Walsh just decided to join him with Revo, with his actual British team, Revo 7 Kawasaki, which is a pretty cool story. And then obviously Jack Brunel, and I think he's only doing the first 4 rounds, but as a British arena cross champion, it'll be nice for him to get this experience of racing AMS Supercross as well. And like you just said, Brian Sue, he's waited too long to do this, in my opinion. So it's nice to see him finally go to America to do an AMS Supercross Championship, and hopefully he can open some eyes up over there.
Right, so here we go. The final part of the podcast, the most difficult part. Oh. Who's your top 5 in the championship, 450s?
Oh, geez. In any order? Or?
Oh, no, 1 to 5.
Oh, geez, right. You've really hit me here. I'm going to say Webb to win. Webb to win, Ferrandis second, Roczen third, Tomac 4th, and who have I missed? Musquin 5th. We'll go for that.
Musquin 5th?
Completely random.
I wonder if your prediction article will be anyway the same as
probably will be completely
podcast.
Different, because you give me no warning there, and I just picked 5 names to be honest. But I'm going for Webb for the win.
Okay, very good. Thanks for that.
Right, you have to do it now.
Yeah, you sure?
Oh, I'm assuming you've thought about it because you knew you were going to end the podcast like this.
No,
so
I haven't actually thought about it. There's too many.
So you've shot yourself in the foot as well.
Well, I have a guide from you, so I asked you first. So
topsy turvy.
I'm gonna go Webb, I think, just because of his mentality to win. I'll go Eli second, Sexton third, Roczen 4th, and Ferrandis 5th.
Wow.
Because
Ferrandis is going to surprise you.
I'm not sure of Roczen's consistency with his health, and I think Sexton will step up.
I could see Ferrandis winning the whole thing, to be honest.
This could
I'm
all
just saying
change,
Webb.
but in a week's time, of course. I wouldn't
Could
put that
change
in
in
any
5
sort
minutes'
of
time.
concrete. Yes. Roczen could easily win this, and so could Ferrandis, and we're starting to wonder. But yes, Cooper Webb. So we're both going with Cooper Webb as things stand.
Surprised by that, no?
Yeah.
I don't think too many people have picked Webb to win it this year, to be honest.
Yeah, it's with that Alden thing, it makes you kind of wonder, and then you think, well, he'll probably just use that as motivation to win again. But if it goes, for me, if it starts to go wrong early, I think that's going to be the test for Cooper. If he starts strong, he should be okay. But for so many guys, they're going to want to start strong. And I think that's why this opening round is going to be so exciting in the first 5 or 6 in California here, because everybody's going to want to get off to that good start. The younger generation coming up, the 3 main guys, maybe with the exception of Roczen, his probably focus is going to be the second half of the season. But Chase Sexton's never won a race. Dylan Ferrandis has never won a race. Adam Cianciarulo's never won a race. They're going to have to win a race before they really feel they can challenge for this title. So they're going to have to go for it early. We all know what Justin Barsh is like. He just goes for it all the time, and he's especially good early. Eli Tomac will want to justify his decision to go to Star Yamaha early, or there's going to be panic stations there. Cooper Webb has to prove he can win without Alden Becker. So you've probably 6, 7, 8 guys there that are going to feel the pressure straight away. I think Roczen actually, he'll be the one that'll be just want to get consistent podium top 5 results in early. But for me, everyone else, they're going to want to go for it and prove to themselves, prove to their team, and prove to their rivals that they're title contenders. So a lot to look forward to. Just 1 week to go. Annie, thanks for taking the time out to give us your thoughts. And that's a wrap on the 2022 Supercross preview. Thanks, everyone.